So this is Dr. Lyn Patrick. I'm here live with Dr. Walter Crinnion, and we are going to talk to you about our upcoming Environmental Health Symposium, Endocrine Disruption, the Solution.
So why should you come to endocrine disruption? It's not just about hormones. These environmental disrupting compounds cause obesity, diabetes, infertility, thyroid problems, low testosterone, female reproductive problems, but they also cause neurologic problems, immune problems,
and let's not forget about
issues.
And let's not forget about fatty liver disease.
And fatty liver disease.
Yeah.
These are multifunction compounds, and the CDC has identified multiple forms of each of these in everyone. Now, there are 4 major EDCs that do all this amazing multiple work in individuals. So if you've got someone with overweight, with blood sugar issues, with infertility, a man less than 50 years old with low testosterone, fatty liver, diabetes, all these things, this is for you. I mean, do you know what the 4 major EDCs are? Do you know where their sources are? Do you know how to test them? Do you know how to treat them? If not, this conference is for you. This is all about tole-causum.
And let's just remember that one of them, bisphenol A, is probably relevant for all bisphenols and is in over 95% of us. I think now, are we up to 99% yet? I know that
it is in all bisphenols, and interestingly enough, the last CDC 4th report update in March of 2018 did add in bisphenol S and F, and they are in higher levels in individuals than bisphenol A, because we're getting all these BPA-free things that have bisphenol S and F. So they're being found in higher levels.
Right. The good news is that they go through the body pretty quickly. So your job as a clinician is to figure out how to stop the exposure in your patients. And you'll learn that at EHS.
And that's one of the issues, because there was this study done this past year where a group of young teenage women followed a protocol set by one of the university's research department. It was a great protocol, looked at BPA before and after, and half of them had an increase in BPA. So you have to know what you're doing.
Right. Right. And I think, the other thing that we're now looking at and dealing with, every single clinician out there understands that diabetes is an epidemic way beyond what could be ever conceived as a result of genetic mutation. And unfortunately, it's not a result of increased calorie intake, and it's not just a result of increased simple carbohydrate intake. And I would include high fructose corn syrup in that, which, needs to be taken out of commerce anyway. Nobody should eat that. But the problem is that increase in diabetes in 2020, and let's see, it's now late 2018 now. So we're talking about a year from now, a little over a year from now, 1/2 of the American population, the adult population, will be diabetic. What are we waiting for? So we're looking at, the 4 that Walter mentioned. If you don't know them, you'll know them by the end of EHS. But remember that we're talking about metals. Metals are endocrine disruptors. There's no fight about that anymore. Mercury is an endocrine disruptor, cadmium is an endocrine disruptor, and arsenic is an endocrine disruptor. Arsenic is probably the #1 culprit, at least according to Dr. Pizzorno's research, in terms of its effect on insulin resistance and insulin.
Diabetes, absolutely.
Yes. But we're also looking at dioxins. We're looking at the bisphenols, organochlorine pesticides. Walter, I just got an email about the recent release of the FDA Market Basket survey, where the FDA takes a look at our food supply.
Yeah, the Total Diet Study.
The Total Diet Study, and actually is looking at an increasing contamination of organochlorine pesticides in our current food supply. This started in 2014. They started acknowledging and admitting this. And now they're actually expressing concern about it. So this is, of course, because we're eating a lot of imported food. Conventionally grown food in other parts of the world can be sprayed with organochlorine pesticides. So that's an unfortunate body burden we absolutely need to understand a lot more about and how to remediate that. And then there's, other POPs. Well, we're going to talk a lot about persistent organic pollutants and their role in endocrine disruption, and especially PCBs, which Walter's written quite a bit about in AltMed Review. We're going to talk about testing and treating for PCB exposure and its relationship to the etiology of diabetes. So we're going to have some fantastic clinician speakers. So we're going to have clinicians who routinely test for and treat organochlorine pollutant, persistent organic pollutant, metal exposure, BPA exposure. And so you'll learn how to test for and to treat these exposures so you can get your patients better. We can't throw hormones at patients anymore and just expect them to respond. And especially where this is true is in thyroid disease. We're going to have one of the world experts in thyroid disruption talking about how thyroid disruptors screw up, to use an unscientific term, the receptor sites for T3 and T4. So you can throw as much T3 and T4 in that mix as you want, and you're not going to get a corresponding cellular nuclear effect, which is where the thyroid hormones work, is in the nucleus of the cell, because the receptor sites aren't working. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot to teach you. We really hope that you will join us in Scottsdale, Arizona this coming spring. In April, we're going to have an amazing conference. Dr. Crinnion and I will be there, along with many others. Do you want to talk a little bit about Pete Myers? He's one of our keynotes.
Well, Pete Myers is co-author with Theo Colburn on Our Stolen Future. He's been at the forefront since this began, since the whole movement of environmental disruption began. Pete's been there, and he is still continuing to do research. So, it's going to be fantastic. And we've got Fred Vom Saal, who's like the father of BPA. He's going to be there. It's going to be world-class endocrine disruption, and it's not about hormone replacement.
And just as a little teaser, we may have a guest from France who has been at previous EHS conferences, who has also been highly involved in the research on endocrine disruption, as well as his seminal publications, and I'm going to give it away, but his seminal publications on glyphosate. And we have the unprecedented opportunity to have him here in the United States again, so don't miss that. All right, any last words, Dr. Crinnion?
Show up.
All right, please be there. Thank you so much.
Will you